Hello everybody, welcome to Stratoscale Hybrid DevOps Pros. I'm Ariel, with me today is Doug.
Hello.
Today we're going to talk about Symphony Database Services, and we're going to take a look at support for Cassandra.
That's correct.
All right, so how are we supporting Cassandra, Doug?
So we have the ability to provision and manage Cassandra clusters. We currently are supporting Cassandra 3 and Cassandra 3.11 and certainly plan to operate more over time.
Fantastic.
So let's jump into it. So it's available. Here's our catalog, service catalog, and you'll see database clusters right here. So we push on that. And we'll just go through how you would launch one of
So
these.
I see you have a 3-node Cassandra cluster waiting.
Yeah, it's waiting for us. It's in the oven. Okay, so here's the create sequence. So we give it a name. We'll give this one cluster. You can give it a description. This would be a drop-down. I have only loaded the Cassandra 3.11, but it would have the other cluster databases we support. You could pick a parameter group. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. And here's kind of key thing. You get to pick how many nodes you'd like to have.
So deploying a cluster is easy as picking the number of nodes.
And storage, yes. So we'll pick 3 and put some disk on this. And then you also pick the compute size for each of the nodes. So I think we'll do,
One medium,
yeah. And then, so that gives you, I think that's what I put on that one. So that gives you a couple CPUs and 4 gig of RAM. You can pick a storage pool. I only have one.
So that's going to give me my backend storage.
Right, so the persistent data from the cluster ends up on a volume.
Fantastic.
And then here in the network, you get to pick what VPC that you'd like this cluster to be on. And then the port it will be exposed on for the client access.
Okay.
So then we'll just go look at the one I already made. So the most important thing on this panel is really the endpoint. So that's at the point you provision it, you're likely going to want to connect to it with your favorite Cassandra client. So you would use one of those endpoints, and then you'd be able to read and write from your cluster.
Got it. So these are the endpoints inside of my VPC.
That's correct.
Okay, great.
And then you can see here you have
3 nodes. And,
I put them at 5 gig and M1 medium. So this is kind of the general information about your cluster. So the main operation with a Cassandra cluster over time would be the ability to scale it.
Yep.
So you have the ability to do an extend operation. So if you decide that you would like to increase the capacity of your database cluster, you just click on extend. And then I think there's some important aspects to this screen. So one of the operations that we support in our relational database services that you can scale the compute and storage individually of an already running instance. Here, we don't do that because what you can do is add nodes to the cluster that are bigger.
More compute, more storage.
Right, and then just decommission the ones that are smaller, and it would be an operation that would occur with no downtime.
Because Cassandra would reshard the data and redistribute it according to available capacity.
Correct.
It's a great product.
So I could do 2 nodes. We could put, like I said, more storage. We could pick some more compute. Of course, it'll default to storage pool and subnet.
Yep.
And that will go off and start provisioning some extra nodes.
Oh, so 2 extra nodes are going to come online, and then my Cassandra cluster is going to grow.
That's correct.
And then I can shrink it later on, you said.
Right. So I think, while it's processing, we need to wait for it to finish this operation, and then we can do a shrink operation. I think I touched on the fact that you could provision new nodes with different storage and compute capacity for the purposes of making your cluster not only larger in number of nodes, but each node be beefier. And that happens with a node downtime. It's also important to point out other operations operate the same way.
So what other operations can we do?
So like the reboot operation. So if you just want to basically reboot the instances underneath the cluster, you can run this operation. It will boot each node in sequence, so you're getting a rolling reboot, so you won't lose any availability.
That's fantastic.
And then we can talk about, while we're waiting for this, we can talk about parameter groups.
Okay, so parameter groups allow us to avoid SSHing into the nodes?
That's right,
okay.
Because you can't. So there's, every database has its parameters, and if you would provision this yourself on bare metal, you would SSH in with VI and change all the parameters. Well, you can't do that. So we give you a mechanism that's hopefully better to do that. So there's database-specific parameters here that are created when you load the engine. So there's one for Cassandra, and there's a default set. One of the important things about the default set is that there's certain parameters that you would scale based on the compute and storage resources, and we've set those up with formulas so they scale.
That's great.
But you can always, if you like, make your own parameter groups. So the operation to do that is you basically duplicate the default, and you let's go back and find it. So here's my one, and then you go into the parameters.
And now I can edit all the parameters.
Right, and it puts up. So these would be, well, these are definitely Cassandra-specific parameters that any Cassandra administrator would understand.
So I have the benefit of a managed environment without giving up any of the flexibility, because I can fine-tune.
Right.
That's perfect.
And one of the things, again, with the parameter groups, so you change and save your parameter group, and then you can apply it. There's an attached parameter operation. So you'd attach this parameter group, and it would be applied in a rolling manner
To all the nodes in my Cassandra cluster.
Right. So because they all have to reboot because the parameters won't be active till the database restarts, but
Yep.
it would do it in a way that keeps availability. And the other very powerful feature here is that if you attach the same parameter group to 10 clusters, and then you decide that you want to change some of the parameters, you change the parameter group, it'll apply them.
So when I'm managing at scale, having the ability to centrally manage all my parameters governing the behavior of the database gives me a lot of control and a lot of flexibility.
That's correct.
That's great. I think we're leveraging a mechanism similar to what you'd expect to see on AWS with their RDS options and parameter groups. So
I think that
benefit.
Amazon has chosen not to expose this level of management provisioning for NoSQL databases, but I think it's important for people to have this capability.
Fantastic. So we've just seen how Symphony Database Services helps us manage NoSQL databases like Cassandra using APIs that are AWS RDS compatible, parameter groups, and a lot of the operational capabilities that are reducing the load as an admin. It's a fantastic capability for database administrators. If you want to learn more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can read about us on our blog and take a look at a lot of infrastructure as code examples on GitHub. Search for Stratoscale at GitHub. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Ariel.